Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Team Kentucky update. We start most of these updates by talking about our excitement for the future, record-breaking economic development, creating a record amount of jobs at the second highest wage we have ever seen, a future that we are creating for our kids and for our grandkids that is brighter than many of us had ever thought was possible. But I want to start today by talking about how challenging the present is. Whether it is 2 years of a pandemic, multiple ice storms, the worst tornado event in our history, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, or inflation that is making the daily lives of our families more and more difficult. To get to that bright future, we have to be able to push through the present. And I know that one of the biggest challenges of the present is gas prices. Gas was $2.85 around this time a year ago. Now it's averaging $4.31 at the end of last month here in Kentucky. That means it's harder for families to get to work. It costs them more to get their kids to school, to take their families to church, or to go on a hard-earned vacation that after this pandemic, everybody has earned. And it's hard as a state to push policies that would potentially decrease gas prices. See, oil is an internationally traded commodity that is primarily controlled through supply dictated by some of the largest international corporations in the world and by some foreign countries. But without action, a Kentucky statute is going to result in an increase to gas prices for Kentuckians. See, under Kentucky statute, there is a trigger that if we do not act, and today I am, it will result in a 2-cent per gallon increase to the gas tax on July 1. This is a statute that connects increases to the gas tax to the average wholesale price of gas. It was never intended to increase gas prices on our families at a time when they have jumped so rapidly. They were intended to slowly increase the gas tax as gas over a period of years to decades would slowly increase. Again, without action, starting July 1, Kentucky's gas tax would increase 2 cents, thus resulting in significant hardship on our families. So today, I, along with the Department of Revenue, are issuing an emergency regulation freezing Kentucky's gas tax so that increase does not occur. With today's action, it will ensure savings of Kentuckians at least up to the first part of January, at which point the legislature will be back in session and can take it up and can make a policy determination from there. We believe that this will result in a savings to Kentucky families of about $35.4 million through mid-January 2023, but put simply, it's the right thing to do. While it is primarily out of our control as a state to decrease gas prices, this is a step that we can and we must take to prevent them from further increasing. Even better, this is going to have no material impact on the transportation budget. It's not going to impact any ongoing project or any planned project. In fact, it's only about 1.6% of the overall transportation cabinet budget, which is healthier than it has been in a long time, including a 21% increase in the transportation infrastructure dollars from the federal government. In other words, we have all the bipartisan infrastructure bills dollars flowing in and ultimately funding projects out there. In January, I'm going to be asking for the state legislature to make the transportation budget whole through a transfer of general fund dollars. That will not be a problem, as we just came off in April, the largest general fund collection month in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So it will present zero financial interest It'll just present an important savings to our families. I want to turn it over very quickly to Secretary of the Transportation Cabinet, Jim Gray, just to further discuss the lack of a real impact on the Transportation Cabinet budget. And then I'll mention a few other things on gas, and then we'll move to other tips for our families to save. Jim?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Governor. And I'll just amplify quickly on what the governor has already said. He expressed it well. I'll just say that from an operational point of view, the cabinet will operate effectively, just as our public, just as our citizens are adjusting and adapting. The cabinet will adjust and adapt. The governor said it well that this represents about a 1.6% influence on the cabinet's budget, but we will continue with no material impact to our operations. We will continue with all of the projects that have been planned. That's roughly 1,500 projects across the state that are in process today in planning, one stage of a level of planning or execution, implementation, actual construction. So these projects will continue regardless and despite of this necessary action that the governor's taking today. Governor?
This is a step that is going to help our families, but so much more. Think about our fire departments, our EMS groups that are out there, our state fleet, and the costs that we incur. This is going to help every Kentucky business in the logistics sector. It's something that ultimately is going to provide a savings to help not only Kentucky families, but Kentucky businesses and those who work to keep us safe each and every day. I'm also submitting a letter to Kentucky's Attorney General asking for advice on whether to declare a state of emergency, which is necessary to activate the price gouging statute. I want to be clear, this is something that other states are looking at, but haven't made final determinations, and I want to make sure we are doing the same analysis that is out there. I'm not presupposing any answer. I do want real feedback from the AG's office on whether they think that there is action being done by, for instance, any of these companies, and what action that we could potentially take as a state to help our families. We will wait on their answer. We will discuss it certainly first with them. Look, I'm committed to helping our people during this time. You know, today, this order will prevent an increase in the price of gas due to the state's gas tax. In addition, I signed an executive order in February that froze vehicle property taxes that were otherwise going up with the increasing value of used cars. I proposed a 1% state sales tax that the legislature did not end up enacting, which would have saved money on virtually every purchase that Kentuckians are struggling with right now due to inflation. And I wrote a letter to federal leadership calling on them to suspend the federal gas tax until the end of the year, something the federal government, which prints money, is able to do while still keeping their transportation obligations intact. So as we've discussed, we know that rising prices and inflation are presenting challenges. So in addition to the step we've taken today, we want to remind Kentuckians about programs that are out there if you are struggling. We want to remind them of ways that they can seek help. So today we're talking, I think, about 5 different programs that we want to make sure that people have front and center. The first is the Team Kentucky Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund. This is a fund that's been providing assistance, and it can provide up to 15 months of past due and future utility bills. Renters and landlords can view a complete list of requirements and apply for rental assistance through stopmyeviction.org or teamkyhherf.ky.gov for up to 12 months of past due rent and utility bills and 3 months of future payments. I've seen a couple stories out there that claiming that people may be getting kicked out of where they rent because of rising prices and struggling to meet their bills. They can get help. This program is still intact. it is still available to assist people, and it can free up hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars for folks that are otherwise struggling. Lexington area residents can apply separately at covid19renterhelp.org. The second one is for those that don't rent but own their home and are struggling. It's the Homeowners Assistance Fund. We created this program to help homeowners impacted by COVID-19 foreclosure or loss of utility services, very similar to that first fund, but it is still in effect for people who are struggling as this pandemic continues, albeit doing much better on the pandemic side itself. Qualified homeowners can visit team-ky-haf.ky.gov to apply for up to $35,000 in assistance. That can help with delinquent mortgage payments, property taxes, homeowners or flood insurance, homeowners association and fees, and utility costs. So if you are having a real hard time making ends meet at the end of the month, you own your own home, you are concerned about being able to stay in it due to inflation, you can potentially get up to $35,000 worth of help from this fund. If approved, the funds will be paid as a grant directly to the mortgage servicers, utility companies, county property tax administrators, insurance agencies, or homeowners associations. And of course, we all know the importance of access to high-speed quality internet, something that even if you are struggling may be an absolute requirement for your work, for your kids' education, for your health care. In December, the FCC launched the Affordable Connectivity Program. This is a long-term $14 billion program to ensure people can afford the internet needed for work, school, health care, and more. There are so many dollars available in that program right now. The federal government is continuing to push it out because enough people aren't taking advantage of it. If you can save a number of dollars here, you can use them to help cope with rising prices in other areas. Qualifying households can receive a monthly benefit of up to $30 per household. You can visit fcc.gov/ACP. And then another important resource for families with children is the Kentucky Child Care Assistance Program. This program helps eligible families pay for child care, right? You're having trouble meeting the bills. You got to get to work. Summer has come on. You need that child care assistance. It's tough to pay the costs of child care and work, especially if you're not quite making enough to potentially justify it. And we need you in the workforce right now with more jobs than ever before. See, this helps eligible families pay for child care, and you can access information on this program through Connect. It's easy to apply, and I know it'll be an important resource for families. And then, of course, we just want to remind Kentuckians about community action agencies and all the help they already provide throughout the Commonwealth. There are 23 agencies across the state, and they offer a wide range of support, including food security, transportation, home energy, senior support, and more. You can visit capky.org. So, to recap, today, taking a step to stop gas prices from increasing due to state statute. Second, outlining ways that families can save money or get help, paying rent, paying utilities, paying the mortgage, paying for your internet bills, getting childcare assistance so that you can get to that job or be able to make ends meet and getting assistance for childcare you're already paying for, and then the groups in your areas that are already out there helping. Listen, the present and inflation is hard. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Please look at these opportunities, and we're going to continue to look for ways to save you money and to connect you to other programs that are out there. I'll say again, we have an incredibly bright future in Kentucky, but it seems like every challenge we're dealing with in the present keeps piling up. We can and we will make it through it. We'll make it through it together. We'll continue to provide different opportunities for people to be able to get by, to get through what is temporary, and to get to what I think is amazing. And I want to talk a little bit about the amazing, because just later this afternoon, I'm going to be participating in the grand opening of a facility in Bowling Green that's bringing nearly 300 new jobs to the area. This is one of the companies that we have previously announced that will be breaking ground on building their facility, which is going to create a ton of construction jobs as well. I'm going to be joining local officials in Warren County and executives from Fruhoff, North America, for the opening of the company's first manufacturing operation in the United States. A year ago, leaders at Fruhoff announced their intention to invest $12 million to create 288 full-time jobs with a new facility in the Trans Park. Today, I'm happy to share that investment's grown to $15 million. And 75 of those positions have already been filled since the new location began operation earlier this year. This is a company with a long, rich history in North America, having been established in Michigan in 1890. Its founder, August Fruhoff, was inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame in 2017 as the inventor of the semi-trailer. Since 1997, the company has been manufacturing trailers exclusively in Mexico. This project brings that manufacturing back to the United States and brings it to Bowling Green. The project has also contributed to last year's record economic investment. It's among roughly 650 new location and expansion announcements. And if you didn't see the good news amidst everything else out there, manufacturing orders across our economy stay up and are actually improving. It's an area of the economy, even with other signs that are out there that people are giving mixed analysis, that people are very bullish on, that manufacturing is going to continue to grow. And let me tell you, from electric vehicle batteries to what GE Appliance is doing to making rare earth metal magnets in Louisville to relocating a company last year from Los Angeles to Somerset to agriculture technology. What we do so well in Kentucky is manufacturing amongst so many other things. This year alone, we've announced $3.9 billion of new investments already, more than 6,700 new jobs. So a reminder that the future is bright, and I'm going to see their operation. I'm sorry, we're doing a ribbon cutting, not a groundbreaking today, firsthand in Bowling Green in just a little bit, a couple hours here today. So on top of our priorities in ensuring that we are saving Kentuckians dollars, we're also able today to provide some communities some additional help on their own transportation infrastructure needs. As part of building a better Kentucky, we've worked on safe roads for our families, whether that's going to school, to work, to the grocery store, to church. Our folks deserve to get there safely. Since January 2020, we've approved more than $45.7 million in discretionary funding. And that total includes another round of funding I'm announcing today. It's $2.8 million for 27 projects in 16 counties and in 4 cities. These projects include resurfacing of about 28 miles of local roadways. It ensures that we're not just focused on the major interstates, but the true roads that keep families in these communities safe and get them where they need to go. This funding comes at an important time. This summer's an active construction season, and now the communities will have funds to improve local roadways following a harsh winter and a backlog of maintenance. In addition to the resurfacing projects, there are 3 projects I want to highlight that will help support economic development. The first is a $375,000 award to Anderson County. That's going to fund improvement on US 127 to support a new industry, that's Summit Polymers. This is a heavily traveled road used by both cars and trucks. In Edmonson County, the fiscal court will receive $273,659 to widen Bald Knob Road. This work will help improve traffic flow to a newly rebuilt golf course. And in Hickman County, they'll be awarded $250,000 to help go towards construction of a commercial entrance and access road from US 51 north to a recently acquired industrial development site just north of Clinton. All the road projects were submitted to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for discretionary fund consideration. In each case, the county fiscal court or the city council approved for funding is responsible for administering the work, but this is going to be a little bit of help for further projects inside our communities. So as we think about rebuilding roads, we continue to think about rebuilding lives and communities impacted by the devastating tornadoes in Western Kentucky. Over the last month, I've announced nearly $20 million in West Kentucky state aid funding for emergency, or the SAFE Fund. That was the fund approved by the General Assembly, most of which was approved right at the end of the last session. This helps communities of Western Kentucky in their ongoing cleanup and recovery in the wake of those devastating tornadoes. Today, I'm happy to announce another round of more than $1 million to 2 eligible Western Kentucky counties to help with the cost of rebuilding. The funds announced today will accommodate the local share for FEMA eligible expenses and help cover the cost of some expenses that FEMA won't reimburse. Today's funding awards include more than $58,000 to the Hopkins County Fiscal Court for debris removal. And remember, they've already received, I think, a little over $4 million. These are funds where you can have ongoing applications for, because you have ongoing expenses. More than $10,000 are going to Taylor County for debris removal, and more than $970,000 are going to reimburse the city of Bowling Green for its coverage of utility reconnection fees for its citizens, as well as repayment for the removal of trees and stumps from private properties and replanting of trees lost as a result of the storm. It's been 6 months since these storms, since we lost over 80 lives. We will never be able to replace those individual children of God, and the rebuilding effort is going to take time. But whether it's this or the nearly $24 million we've paid out of the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund, we are here for these families. When we were able to announce the rebuilding of 300 homes through that $16 million partnership with 3 charities, or ensuring that our local governments don't go bankrupt, just doing the right thing for their citizens. We are going to be there every single day for these communities. The whole state stands with you. We're not going anywhere. You hear from us just about every week, because we're working with you every day to make sure we get this done. All right, let's do a brief COVID update. Really a mixed bag. Remember that we get a new map tonight, but let's show the map from this last week. So certainly the good news is there's a lot of green there, which means the state overall is generally doing well. The bad news is we have 4 red counties, certainly more than we have in a while, and I think McCracken County is the first county to be red for more than a week. Remember, this isn't just case counts. This is hospital capacity and others. It's a kind of a deeper analysis, or at least one that brings multiple different things together. So we ought to continue watching this map. And listen, it means there's more COVID than there was a month ago. But just like we saw nationwide and we talked about last week, not only is the rate of new cases slowing nationally, it actually went down in Kentucky. If we look at the stair-stepper chart, we actually had a decrease from the week before. Now, there are a lot of at-home tests, and there is more COVID in the last 3 weeks than any of those graphs show. But if it's an at-home test, you don't end up with a PCR test. Most of the time, it means it's really mild. And that's why we have the map we showed before, that this statistic used to definitely show us what was going on in COVID, and increased cases were directly proportional with increased hospitalizations. That is no longer the case, but it is important to continue to look at this metric. While that is good, the positivity rate continues to increase, though certainly the rate of increase continues to slow. This is thrown off a little too by the fact that it's only PCR tests. And right now, if you're getting a PCR test, you're probably worried that you do have COVID. So again, it skews these results a little bit. But here's the really good news. While we have more cases than we had a month ago, and while the positivity rate continues to go up, it is not proportional anymore to significant illness amongst people who get it. I mean, when we look at hospitalization, look at that. We were worried that we were seeing maybe a little bit of an increase as we saw cases increase. Hospitalizations going down again and have stayed really low. One of the best indicators, and we hope it's an indicator of the future, but certainly of the present, in this pandemic that we can tell you is that cases are no longer directly proportional to hospitalization. That is really important. We waited a long time for this day to happen. It's due to vaccinations, which have played a big part in the new variants not being as deadly. It's also all the new therapeutics that are out there, and people knowing how to protect themselves and having real options in what they do. ICU, even better, never went up for the most part in any significant way, never increased during an increase in cases. This is even better news because the variants appear to be ultimately impacting people not as deeply in their lungs, but higher in their respiratory system, which has also meant ventilators have been statistically pretty close to zero now since the end of the Omicron surge. Again, this is all really good news. This is the safest that we have been in this pandemic since it hit. People should watch these numbers where they are. They should make their own best decisions for their health and safety. They can look at that map, but certainly they should get fully vaccinated and you should get boosted. The difference in what we see from how sick people get is still directly related to some degree, though people aren't getting as sick, thankfully, to whether you're fully vaccinated and whether you've been boosted. So very quickly, an update on vaccinations. Just a couple of parts have changed, but first, 2/3 of all Kentuckians, whether you're old enough or not, have gotten at least one shot. When you look at Kentuckians who are eligible, that's 70% because it's still only kids over 5. And when you look at people that can make their own health care decisions, 77%. So while people like to talk about division or this side and that side, 77% of people don't agree on anything anymore, but have been willing to get at least one shot of this vaccine. That means Kentuckians, by and large, are doing the right thing to protect one another. The 18 to 24-year-olds went up by a point, now to 58%. 16 to 17-year-olds went up a point as well. All right, and to close out today, and then we'll open it up for questions, our Team Kentucky All-Stars. Kentuckians have been through so much over the past few years. The pandemic, multiple ice storms, floods, tornadoes, and more. But through this adversity, we've learned just how strong we are as Team Kentucky. No one has shown the perseverance and resilience better than our kids, especially the students who had to sacrifice normalcy and traditions they looked forward to save lives. Every group of students that comes up here to the Capitol, I talk to them about a bunch of things. But near the end, I always say thank you, because we have never called upon people their age to do what they've done these last several years, to sacrifice and to give things up. And because they were willing to do it, there are thousands of people that are still alive in Kentucky, at least tens of thousands across the country. They have lived out faith and values and sacrifice at a younger age than just about any generation has ever been asked to. And while, yes, that's come with some significant burdens, I also believe it's going to imbue them with purpose, and a special purpose in service to one another, maybe the likes of which we've never seen, or maybe we haven't seen it since that greatest generation. I think they're going to be a special generation of people that can take us in incredible directions. So for this week's Team Kentucky All-Stars, we're celebrating the class of 2022. I am so grateful to each and every one of them. They have risen to the occasion under unimaginable circumstances. They were faced with challenges that impacted not just education, but mental health, friendships, and so much more. They found a way to stick together, to stick with us. You know what? They were just as important members of Team Kentucky as everybody else. The actions of these young people, just as important as the actions of any other Kentuckians. They did their full part, not a lesser part, but their full part in helping us to get through this pandemic. Each one of them are superheroes. And so to the class of 2022, they have made us proud. And we know they'll continue to make us proud with whatever they do next, with where our economy is going after we push through the difficulties of the present. We need your help. We need your help to ensure that we continue being the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America, the agri-tech capital of the United States of America. Right now, we are the talk of every boardroom across the country, and every country across the globe knows now not only who we are and where we are, but what we can do And this class is going to keep that going and take us to special places. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. We have 4 journalists here with us. We'll start with Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon to you. I noticed that I've got a two-parter. The gas freeze or the gas tax freeze, you did as emergency regulation, I guess, because of the executive orders only have a 30-day shelf life with that legislation that the General Assembly passed. But don't they have to also approve that emergency reg? That's the first part. And the second part, to help with the supply chain issues, have been any thought of lifting some of the restrictions on trucks, like Secretary Gray has done for relief supplies in Western Kentucky?
So on supply chain issues, right now, it hasn't been identified for us that there is a challenge in getting things to Kentucky. It's a challenge in just getting things. It's certainly something that I'm concerned about in terms of baby formula. So this baby formula shortage in large part was caused by an FDA ordering a total shutdown of a manufacturing facility so important to the United States that its ramifications should have been seen. I'm going to push to ensure that every time the FDA makes one of these decisions, and I get they're making it in terms of immediate health, but they need to be providing a long-term analysis of the ramifications, how this impacts our economy and different supply chains. So in the very least, the president, governors, Congress is made immediately aware of what could happen. And if there need to be discussions on whether it should be more surgical, that can happen in the beginning and not at the point where we are facing a shortage that has so many parents scared. I was one of those parents more than a decade back. I understand how scary that must be. Freezing the gas tax is done through an e-reg because that's what the statutes set up. Certainly, if this was a declaration of emergency, which it's not, it would be active for 30 days, except it can be re-upped by county judges. That's what we've been able to do for that county and in certain areas dealing with tornadoes when we still have other counties helping and they want to be able to be reimbursed by FEMA later. You still need that state of emergency continuing. So it's not anything about the timing. It's our reading of the law and how it's properly enacted. A interim committee may take this up. We'll be happy to talk to them about it. As you can see, the timing we've laid out means we're trying to get this to the next session of the General Assembly where they can take a look. And at that point, it will be up to them from a policymaking standpoint. Angie Bevan, WLEX.
Couple questions, really. The gas tax in the state, is it something that would go up this approximate 2 cents annually? Was that every year that it would be going up like that?
And the next one?
And then next question, I guess, is what does our gas tax sit at right now currently?
So I believe the gas tax is currently at 26 cents. It would go up to 28 cents. And the statute basically says each July 1, it looks at the average wholesale price of gas, and it has an adjustment from there with a maximum, which is the 2 cents. It's gone up so much that this would be the overall maximum amount. And again, it's meant to do this over time. When you would say that natural inflation over time, things cost more, as opposed to, immediate direct inflation that's harming our families. Did I get all that right, Jim? Okay. Aaron Kelly.
Representative Herron announced that she plans to file again some legislation that would create the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. What are your thoughts on that? And is there anything else you'd like to see the General Assembly do when it comes to gun violence?
Yeah, so before coming out here, I saw on social media that there's an individual out there customizing coffins for the children that were lost in Texas. Being a dad, it's really hard to look at a Superman coffin or one spray painted pink, and God bless that individual for giving that gift, I guess, primarily to the families in remembrance. Anytime these happen, it tears at the very fabric of who we are. I remember being a parent of young children during Sandy Hook, and I was Attorney General during the Marshall County school shooting. Certainly know folks that were in the Paducah area school shooting decades back. when the General Assembly meets, I hope they will at least have a real discussion. And that discussion could touch on a lot of topics, but it will take any policy change will take ultimate agreement between leadership. I believe that there are things that I can do in the interim that fully comply with the Second Amendment and legislation that's been passed that does make our kids safer. We can continue to work with our school systems on physical security. Now, there's a lot of talk right now on whether doors were open and whether they were locked. That's something that we can work to address in all of our schools right now. There should not be multiple entry and exit points that someone can walk through each and every day. There should be, in an ideal situation, multiple doors you have to be buzzed through and every single person checked in. When we do those things, and you hate to talk about schools in these terms, you turn what somebody might view as a soft target into a hard target so that they look somewhere else. Certainly, I signed the bill authorizing and requiring SROs in all of our schools. And that's something that I get that there is legitimate dialogue about how it might make certain groups of students feel inside of schools. But if we can have at least one person trained and in a school at all times about how to respond to these, then that puts us in a better situation if it happens. So my goal is to continue to work in the authority that I have, which is in our current legislative framework, to do everything I can. My kids are in middle school and they're in a public middle school. And there have been concerns at different points about safety throughout even that school system, something that matters a lot to me. And I'll continue to work with folks on. Phil.
Is there any communication that you can have with the Biden administration or in Washington to seek or request any further relief as far as the gas situation is concerned?
So we've asked the federal government in a letter to suspend their gas tax entirely. Now, what they've got to look at is whether or not that would save us money or whether these corporations or foreign countries would just come in and pocket those extra dollars, right? I don't want a major global corporation profiting from harm to our citizens, just so any government can make a point. But I have asked them to do that, but would understand that they would only want to do it in a way that would result in direct cost savings. Certainly anything that they can do to increase domestic supply or any other efforts we would encourage them to take. I'm going to admit it's a challenge. It's an internationally traded commodity, primarily driven by a couple major corporations and a couple of foreign countries. But my hope is that they're doing not just everything they can there, but remember, if we can save Americans $1 over here and they can apply it to the pump, then we help them and they're better off. If we can do things to make food less expensive, then our people are better off. And I'd point out that Kentuckians are suffering from that right now. Remember, we lost $50 million of extra food assistance a month to our poorest Kentuckians so that the General Assembly could say they ended the state of emergency on COVID. The federal government extended theirs, and so every month that's passed since they did that, we've lost out on $50 million more to struggling families to buy more food. I hope they think it was worth it, because it wasn't. We didn't have one restriction left in place because of COVID. We were keeping it so that hungry Kentuckians, seniors and kids could afford the food they need as it got more expensive. Melissa Patrick, Kentucky Health News.
Hi, Governor. So as you said, COVID hasn't gone away. And my boss, Al, just told me that 1/4 of his in-person speakers at a summit he's hosting this weekend have canceled due to COVID-related reasons. And, Lieutenant Governor has announced she has COVID. So as you travel across the state, what do you perceive Kentuckians' attitude is about the pandemic right now? And are you satisfied with how Kentuckians are approaching the pandemic at this time?
I'm not sure I will ever be fully satisfied until we are past the pandemic. While I believe it is moving towards endemic, it's still in the very least causing significant disruptions. The lieutenant governor I talked to yesterday, I've talked to today, she's fine. Has some cold-like symptoms, for her and for most Kentuckians, what this is disruption. My guess is those that would be going to Al's event are okay, are not in the hospital, but can't go to the event. And we're grateful that they're making those choices. You know, people are still staying home if they are sick, which is exactly what we need. You know, this is probably the natural path that we have increased the timetable for significantly through vaccinations and other means that we took to move it towards being fully endemic. I think in Red County, certainly some thought should be given on individual decisions on masking. Though I will say I'm actually seeing more people masking in the last couple of weeks than I did the weeks before. And I hope that we are helping people to feel empowered and not stigmatized by doing that. Certainly, when we look at the hospitalizations and the other rates, at this point, we could understand a personal decision on what people may or may not do and the risk that they'd take. But disruption towards business and towards your life should be something that everybody factors in. Again, get vaccinated, get boosted. If you can get boosted again, get that too. For everybody over 50, that second booster is pretty important because those that I've seen that haven't gotten it, and it's been a long time since, are getting at least what equates to feeling like a minor flu, and nobody wants that. Debbie Yetter, Courier Journal.
Hi, Governor. I wondered if you had heard any more about from the U.S. Justice Department about what they're looking into in terms of mental health services in the Louisville area and what they may be targeting.
Yeah, Debbie, I was as surprised as everybody else when we got a call roughly an hour before that press release. The federal government, Department of Justice, had not reached out, to my knowledge, to a single state official before the heads up call. They hadn't requested any documentation or data whatsoever. They sent us a letter saying they hadn't prejudged anything. This was in many ways like an inquiry, and they hoped for cooperation. They said it was about levels of institutionalization in that letter as opposed to people getting services in the community. But then the press release came out, and it was pretty aggressive. And it talked not just about institutionalization, but it also talked about not finding people in the community suffering from mental illness and helping them before they might become engaged in criminal activity or in confrontations with the police. And I've talked to our mental health providers around Louisville, and they're stunned because they work really hard and they think they've created a pretty good network. And I very much hope that the Department of Justice is not suggesting and putting on those incredible community mental health workers crime, or suggesting that not reaching people is an excuse for it. Our folks out there do their very best. Louisville has a system that they have worked on for a long time, amazing advocates that do amazing work. And it concerns me that an investigation was launched without ever sitting down and talking to us and getting the information ahead of time. I would have never launched a public investigation with a press release as Attorney General without having some underlying documentation and discussions first. So I plan on having a pretty detailed conversation with the Department of Justice on it. I think that if we are going to cooperate, but if they want cooperation, we need to understand how they got to where they are and where they think they're going. Kelly Dean, WBKO.
Hello, Governor. Talking about the formula shortage, Kentucky's out of stock rate has been increasing over the weeks. What can Kentucky families do today to get their hands on that formula? So when those shipments from other countries are coming in, are there any plans for those cans to come to Kentucky? And would you ever call a special session where lawmakers can help address this issue?
Well, a special session might help us with funding, but funding is not the issue here. It's direct access, and when one of those shipments come in, it's ultimately doled out by the federal government, primarily based on size of population. Those shipments to date have only been the specialty formulas, the very specific ones that oftentimes are either prescription or direct recommendation from a doctor. The two things that people ought to be doing right now is, number one, if they're in our assistance program, something like WIC, they need to call their local health department or their community agency that they work in that program with. And we will work through our state allocations. That's the only place the state makes allocations, to try to make sure everybody gets what they need. Otherwise, you need to be talking to your pediatrician. You know, this is a problem caused by and large by a shutdown from the FDA of a major manufacturer. It does look like it will be resolved in the coming months, but the time between now and then is certainly concerning. And I know that we want to help everybody out there that we can. I was one of these parents 11 and 12 years ago. I can't imagine how scary it is. We will do our very best right now. A whole lot of it has to do with how quickly this facility can ramp up. To prevent it in the future, I want to see the FDA have to do analysis about the downstream effects of what their actions can cause. Certainly during COVID, when they shut down a major facility of one of the vaccine makers, it caused some issues and disruptions there. And we need to really look at how those decisions are made and the ultimate impact that they may cause. Corinne Boyer, WEKU.
Hi, Governor. Is your administration looking at any additional actions that would address inflation? You mentioned Kentucky losing that $50 million in additional food assistance. Is there anything you can do to make food less expensive or to make up for that loss?
Well, certainly on the food side, it's difficult with that state of emergency no longer being in effect and it being related to that COVID state of emergency. But what we're going to be doing is looking through different costs, especially associated with government that Kentuckians end up paying over time, and seeing what we can do to try to lessen that burden. The other thing we're going to do, and can we put up the programs again, is we got a lot of programs that are out there, Corinne, about helping people out in different ways. And it may be food costs that are pushing people over the edge, but if they can get a lot of help on paying their mortgage or paying their rent, then they have more money for food. So our goal is to be effective. And if we can effectively save somebody $10 in one area where we might have only been able to save them $1 in another, ultimately it's going to help that family out more. So here are our first 5 tips for people to look at to see if you qualify for help. If you rent, look at the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund for rent and utilities. If you own your home, look at the Homeowners Assistance Fund for mortgage payments, insurance, and others. Having trouble at the end of the month for any reason, look at the Affordable Connectivity Program from the federal government. Right now, they desperately want more people to sign up for that one. If you have children in childcare and the end of the month is hard, your grocery bill is hard, see if you qualify for the Child Care Assistance Program and reach out to your community action agencies. Now, again, it might not be in food, it might not be in gas, but if we have programs out there that can save you $100 or $200 in other expenses, that can help you to pay for those that are the toughest right now. Mark Stevens from WAVE.
The state opted in years ago in the Louisville area to enter the EPA's reformulated gasoline program in order to meet clean air standards. It's my understanding from Gas Buddy's price analyst that the price difference for reformulated gasoline is now 45 cents more. Could the state opt out of that program to give Louisville area relief at the pump?
It's something we'd have to look at, and we're willing to look at just about anything. You know, number one, you'd have to see what that'll do with your compliance with the EPA and what's our legal latitude, and that's something that we'd have to investigate. The other is years ago we talked about this same piece, and we would have to be convinced that it would create a real direct savings. Just like the federal government's concerned, if they suspend their gas tax, that gas will stay the same price these companies will just make more money is a concern there as well. You know, there has been, and I think there continues to be, an antitrust action because I, as Attorney General, was able to resolve the last price gouging action dealing with gasoline. It was based on price gouging after Katrina, and we brought in tens of millions of dollars for the Commonwealth. One of the reasons I want the Attorney General to look at the current situation and advise us on what they think is possible. But I know in that one, it at least argued that the amount of that the higher amount in the Louisville area had more to do with nearly or only one wholesaler as opposed to multiple that were providing gas. So my 2 points is, number one, it had to be possible. Number two, it have to be effective, making sure we're saving families money and not making oil companies more. All right, that's all we've got for today. We will be back next week. Headline at the end of the day is, while our future is bright, our present is tough. Today's action will prevent gas from increasing 2 cents per gallon on July 1. We just couldn't let that happen. Thanks.